Well, shit. Um, After a lot of experimenting with the reverb circuit in this limited edition hand-wired blah, 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 I've come to the conclusion that without major changes to the circuitry, there's just no way to implement the reverb well. Right now, I have it implemented almost the same way they did from stock, though I have given it its own grid leak at all times and separated with a cap, and I'm connected to what would be the mids wire, if you're thinking of this like a Marshall or Fender. And that's where they had connected originally. This gives less insertion loss than what I would prefer to do in an amp like this, which is take it from the wiper of the treble pot, which is what feeds the next stage, and that would reflect the tonal change in the tone stack. So if you make the channel brighter, the reverb gets brighter. Make the channel darker, the reverb gets darker. But connecting it here gives a huge insert loss. You just lose a lot of gain and the entire channel loses highs. If I connect it to the mids pot, the way they have it here, then the insertion loss is less, but still noticeable. And the reverb does not change as you adjust the tone stack. It just stays whatever it is based on the signal feeding this cap, which is a bunch of mids. What I had first tried to do in the first video was feed it directly from the cathode that drives the tone stack with its own coupling cap, and then a voltage divider to control the level, to give it a grid leak, and set the high pass frequency. And that worked as far as there being no insertion loss, and the dry stuff sounded correct. But again, like the original, there was just no tonal change in the reverb. You turn the treble up, the reverb stays the same. Turn the treble down, reverb stays the same. Same for the bass, just no ability to shape it, which I suppose is why they gave it that really nasty sounding tone circuit on the reverb on this amp, where you could get brighter and darker, but it added a lot of noise. I'm sure that was their band-aid to a fundamental flaw. Now, a Fender reverb also has the same kind of loss, though rather than being attached to the wiper of a volume pot, it's coming from the plate of the next stage. The next stage in this amp is actually the phase inverter. But what Fender does is they have the tone stack before the second gain stage, and the Vox, the tone stack's after the second gain stage. I'm going to kind of simplify for the explanation. But Fender adds yet another gain stage that the Vox does not have, which mixes the wet and dry together and brings the level back up to the point where it would have been if it did not have the insertion loss of the reverb in the mixer, and brings back the high end that you lose from that. Now, this amp has V4, which is the recovery stage for the reverb, which is two triodes paralleled. Not necessarily, I think they just did that because they had an extra triode and it was there, so they did it. So in theory, I could make this a recovery gain stage, just like on a Fender, and do some number crunching to make the output of the dry sound the same, or more or less the same, even though the reverb is connected. We'd have the loss from the reverb. The loss would be connected to the treble wiper, so the reverb would respond to changes in the tone stack, and the overall thing would get one more layer of gain. But at that point, I'm really, really fundamentally redesigning the entire amp. And I'd be glad to do that. I can make that work, and I'm sure I could have some very good results with that. Would it sound just like a JMI? No. Would it sound very comparable? Yes. I mean, this does not sound like a JMI in any of its stock configurations, so it's not like I'm taking it away. Either way would be an improvement. But my suggestion for the owner, and the reason I'm making this video public at this point, is I think the best thing to do is for me to disconnect the reverb from the tone stack entirely. Leave all the stuff inside the amp, so if he ever sells it and someone wants to have reverb, just tell them, hey, reconnect this one wire to where this white wire goes, And I'll take out the stuff that I added this morning, and we'll just, not put those tubes in. He'll save them 2 tubes. Won't, don't worry about connecting the reverb tank or anything. I'll ground out the send so the transformer doesn't have any issues, and then just have an AC30 with tremolo without reverb and have it actually sound like an AC30. That's, I think, the best use of the client's money, because based on everything else I've already had in the circuit and found in experiments on and off camera, unless I were to do an additional gain stage here and do some tone shaping with that additional gain stage, this reverb channel would always be meh. I had a little less meh earlier tied into the cathode down here, and as far as the dry sound was no longer meh, but the reverb behind it was just kind of, it was there. It could be there in varying amounts. And I got it a lot quieter, but while I could make this thing great, I don't think it's a good use of the client's money or my time. So I'm going to send this to him and wait to hear what he says. I'm pretty sure, based on our previous conversations, he's going to say, yep, screw the reverb, I've got pedals for that, and life will be good. This is not me giving up or being unable to do a thing. This is me saying, is the thing worth doing? And if so, how much would it cost? And I don't think the math works out here. I don't think people buy AC30s for the reverb. And the bias trim is fine if you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, don't turn it on. No big deal. It's not affecting the tone when it's off. But that reverb, especially in the stock circuit, just by the nature of its existence, was sucking out a lot of tone, had a huge insertion loss, and it won't be missed.